It was almost dark when they found her, barefoot, still, with the last light of the sun painting her in silence. She stood on the edge of the road like a shadow that hadn't moved in hours. A coarse grain sack covered her head, knotted tightly at the base of her neck, with no slits, no openings, just burlap and breath. Her dress, damp and dirt-streaked, clung to her legs, soaked up to the knees like she'd walked through a river or a storm. Her wrists were tied in front of her with a rope that had frayed from too much struggle. But she didn't fight now. She didn't run. She didn't speak. Just stood there like she didn't care what came next. Cole Travis hadn't expected to see anyone on the road that evening, especially not a girl dressed like the world had tried to erase her. He sat still on his horse for a long moment, watching. She didn't lift her head. The sack saw to that. She didn't shift her weight or make a sound. And something about how quiet she was, went deeper than fear. It felt like she'd already decided she didn't belong anywhere anymore. He dismounted slowly, dust crunching beneath his boots, and walked forward. His voice stayed soft but steady. "You all right?" She didn't answer. "I'm not here to hurt you," he added, his hand loose by his side, not reaching. Still, she stayed silent. Then, like something inside her had finally moved, she whispered through the burlap, voice raw and dry. "Please take them off." It was all she said. Nothing else. No explanation, no name. Just that one line. Cole hesitated, not because he didn't want to help, but because there was something sacred and broken about the moment, like touching the wrong piece would shatter everything. But then his hands, calloused from years of ranch work and older grief, lifted gently to the back of her neck. The knot was tight, twisted with something rough, part rope, part leather, maybe, and dug into her skin. He worked slowly, careful not to pull. Thread by thread, the knot loosened. And then, finally, the sack fell away. The air hit her skin, and she flinched. She kept her head down at first, like even the fading sunlight would hurt. Cole didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. And when she finally looked up, his breath caught. Her face was bruised along the jaw, a split lip still healing, freckles across her cheeks, but she wasn't cursed. She wasn't a monster. She was a girl, young, hurt, and trying hard not to break in front of a stranger. Her eyes, wide and unsure, met his like she was waiting for the worst. Like maybe he'd raise a hand or recoil in disgust. But he didn't. "You've got blood on your foot," he said softly. She looked down and winced, but didn't say anything. "You want to come inside?" he offered. She blinked like she hadn't expected the question. "I don't need pity." "You don't have pity," he replied. "You've got rope burns." She didn't take his hand, but she followed. At the ranch, he gave her a boiled potato, some clean water, and an old shirt she could drape over her shoulders. She sat near the fire, curled up tight, like something still waiting to be taken. Her hand shook so badly she spilled half the cup. Cole didn't comment. He just sat on the floor nearby, not too close, not too far, like maybe quiet could heal where words couldn't. After a long time, she whispered, "They gave me to someone." Cole kept his gaze on the fire. "The man who bid the most," she continued, almost too low to hear. "But he didn't want me after." Cole finally looked up. "Because of your face?" She shook her head. "Because I didn't speak." She swallowed hard and went on. "They said I was cursed, that I'd bring ruin if a man looked too long. So they covered me up." Cole exhaled through his nose. "That's not how curses work." She almost smiled. Just barely. "My name's June." "I'm Cole." She pulled her knees closer. "I didn't want to curse you." "You won't," he said. "But you already changed something," she said after a moment. "What's that?" She glanced at the sack, now folded near the hearth. The silence. By morning, the wind had changed. Not loud, not fast, just enough to make the trees shift the way they do when something important is about to happen. June didn't ask to stay, and Cole didn't ask her to leave. She helped clean the tin plates from breakfast, quietly, as if it made her feel useful. Her sleeves were still rolled down low over her wrists, like she couldn't stand the sight of what the rope had done. But she moved slower now, more certain. She ate more than half her food, and she slept near the fire without flinching in her dreams. Town had already started whispering. A girl in a sack. A rancher who lived alone. Some said she was cursed. Some said Comanche. Some said he'd finally gone mad. But Cole didn't care. He had feed to haul and fences to mend. And now someone who stirred at night from dreams she hadn't asked for. When he returned from the field that afternoon, he found her holding something near the fire. His mother's old Bible. She wasn't reading it, just holding it like it weighed more than it should. She believed in hell. June asked. Cole nodded. And mercy. She ran her fingers over the cracked leather. I never learned to read. He didn't say anything, just handed her a mug of warm water and sat on the steps nearby. They sat like that for a while. No words, just the sound of the land breathing. And for the first time in a long time, June wasn't silent because someone forced her to be. She was silent because someone finally listened. Cole stayed alert after that. Something in his gut told him peace wouldn't last. June moved carefully through the cabin, still quiet, still carrying something deep inside that hadn't yet let go. She helped where she could, cleaned dishes, swept the porch, brought water from the well. She never asked to stay, but she also never looked toward the door. On the third morning, Cole was fixing a fence when he heard the bark of the dog, twice, sharp and low. Not a coyote, something closer. He wiped his hands and stepped onto the porch. Dust was rising in the distance. 2 riders, armed, moving too steady to be lost, too slow to be friendly. June saw them from the window. Her hands tightened around the cloth she was folding. Stay inside, Cole said. Don't open the door. She nodded without speaking. Cole took the shotgun from above the hearth and waited at the doorway. The riders stopped about 50 feet from a porch. One leaned forward in his saddle. We're looking for a girl, he said. Red hair. Wears a sack. Cole didn't blink. Don't know anyone like that. The man smiled a slow, crooked smile. But she came limping down this road. Pale little thing. Pretty underneath, they say. Cole lifted the shotgun slightly. You lost. The second rider stepped his horse forward. We don't want trouble. Just want what belongs to us. She doesn't belong to you, Cole said flatly. The first man tilted his head. She was bought. Not anymore. There was a long pause. Then the men turned their horses and rode off, slow and quiet. Not gone, just circling like buzzards waiting for something to die. Inside, June was curled near the table, hands shaking. The sack was still there, folded neatly, like a ghost that refused to leave. They'll come back, she whispered. Maybe, Cole said, loading the shotgun again. But next time they won't be walking away. That night, he sat near the fire with the shotgun across his lap. June didn't speak. She stayed wrapped in a quilt, back against the wall, knees pulled in. But her fingers, those didn't sleep. They held tight to a hawk feather she'd found on the fence that morning. Cole didn't ask why it mattered, but he saw the way she touched it, like it reminded her of something still alive. On the third night, they returned. This time there were 4. No lanterns, no voices, just the sound of hooves and hate in the dark. Cole heard them long before they reached the house. The quiet kind of sound a man learns to notice after war. Breathing, leather creaking, hooves slowing in the dirt. He stepped onto the porch before they could knock. You weren't invited back, he said. The same man as before stepped down from his horse. Cole remembered now. His name was Grant Teller, a man known for gambling, drinking, and making women disappear near the border towns. She belongs to the man who paid, Grant said. You hide her, you steal property. She's not property, Cole answered. Grant walked forward a few steps. She's a curse. Inside the cabin, June heard every word. She didn't move, didn't cry. She remembered how they looked at her before, like she was nothing, like she was shame with a heartbeat. But she wasn't wearing the sack anymore, and she wasn't hiding. The door opened behind Cole. She stepped out slowly, barefoot, wrapped in the old quilt. Her face clear in the porch light. Her bruises had faded, but they were still there. Her red hair loose around her shoulders. Her eyes full of something stronger than fear. Why are you afraid of me? She asked. The men looked. Even Grant hesitated. You beat me, sold me, tied me up and said I'd bring ruin, she said, stepping forward. But you're the one shaking. Grant backed up a step before he caught himself. Cole raised a shotgun. Ride out. Grant didn't speak, just turned, got on his horse, and left. No words, no fight, just retreat. When the dust settled, June sat down on the porch step. Her hand shook again, but her voice didn't. You didn't have to let me out, she said. I didn't let you, Cole replied. You stepped out. She looked out at the road where the riders had vanished. Then she said something he didn't expect. I needed them to see my face. Cole watched her closely. For the first time, she looked real. Not someone broken, but someone climbing out of something deeper than pain. The next 2 days passed quiet. No trouble came, but town had already caught wind of the visit. Stories traveled fast in Dry Creek. Some said Cole had lost his mind, threatening men with guns. Some said June had cast a spell on him, but the sheriff showed up 2 mornings later. He didn't knock, just sat on the porch, passed Cole a flask, and said, "You did right. They won't try again." Cole didn't ask how he knew. Some men like Grant only understood fear, and now they'd felt it. Not from Cole, but from the girl they called Cursed, who didn't flinch when they stared. June started walking the fence line after that. She helped Cole move feed, brush the horses, check the well. She didn't talk much, but she didn't hide either. One day, a chicken tried to peck her boot, and she laughed, soft and surprised, like the sound wasn't hers. She stopped wearing the quilt, started wearing Cole's mother's old boots, 2 sizes too big. And once, while rinsing the water barrel, Cole saw her pause, staring at her own reflection. Not with hate, just stillness, like she was seeing herself without the sack for the first time. Rain came the next evening, soft at first, then steady. Cole stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching it soak the field. The land, thirsty for weeks, drank it like it had been waiting. June walked out beside him, her sleeves rolled up, hair damp from washing. She looked up at the sky, then turned to him quietly. "I used to pray someone would find me," she said. He looked at her, but didn't speak. "Not to save me," she added, "just to see me." She leaned her head gently against his arm. The rain touched her cheeks. Her voice came softer now. "They always said my face would drive men mad." "It will," Cole replied, "because it makes them face what they did." She looked at him carefully. "What do you see?" He answered without blinking. "I see a girl standing where she wasn't supposed to survive." June swallowed hard. Then she exhaled. That same week, Cole pretended to be busy fixing a fence while June stood in the river. She was knee-deep in the cold water, her arms bare. The rope burns on her skin had faded into pale ridges. Her jaw, once swollen, looked soft in the sunlight. She tilted her head back, letting the light hit the places that had once been hidden. She cupped water in her hands and poured it over her shoulders, over her ribs, over the spot where the sack had choked her breath. Then she looked up, straight at Cole across the stream. "I want to stay." He didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because sometimes silence is a kind of answer too. A kind that means yes. That night, she cooked. It wasn't fancy, just beans, some pork, and corn in a skillet, but Cole didn't say a word. He just watched her move around the cabin. She walked like she belonged there now, like the floor knew her steps, and the fire waited for her to be near. She caught him looking. "What?" she asked, smiling a little. "You're not the same girl who walked up to my fence with a sack on her head." She looked down, then said softly, "I'm still her. I just don't carry the sack anymore." "That's good," Cole replied. She hesitated, then chewed her lip. "I think I want to make a life here, not just hide." Cole's hands tightened slightly around the mug he held. "You mean stay?" She nodded. "Help work. Earn my place." "You already have." She blinked, surprised. "I have." Cole stood and walked over to a small drawer built into the wall. He opened it and took out something wrapped in cloth. He placed it in front of her. June opened it slowly. Inside was a pair of worn leather gloves, stitched by hand, old but strong. "My mother's," Cole said. She believed this land belonged to whoever cared for it, not whoever owned it. "I think she'd want you to have them." June didn't say anything for a long time. Then she slipped her hands into the gloves. They didn't fit perfectly, but they fit close enough. The next few weeks passed quietly. The town began to talk again, but this time it sounded different. The shopkeeper called her Mississippi. The preacher's wife invited her to supper, though Cole gently turned it down. And one afternoon, an older ranch hand passing through stopped at the gate, tipped his hat, and said, "You made it out." June smiled back, still making it. He nodded and rode on. One day, a wagon rolled up the dirt trail. June saw it from the window. Her body tensed. Cole stepped onto the porch, hand near the shotgun, just in case. But there was no danger. Just a woman, thin and tired, with a small child in her lap. The woman's eyes met June's like she already knew her. She climbed down slowly, voice shaking. "I heard you might be here," she said. "I was with you back in Galveston, before they split us." June's breath caught. The child in the woman's arms looked about 4. Quiet, sleepy. "They told me you were taken," the woman whispered. "That you were gone." "They tried," June said, stepping forward. "But someone stopped them." The woman looked to the ground. "I don't have a place." "He left. I got no money. No safe road." June looked at Cole. He didn't say a word. Just opened the barn door and pointed to the loft. "There's room." The woman started to cry. Not loud, not shaking. Just quiet, tired tears like someone finally dropping years of fear. June helped her down, lifted the child into her arms, and carried them inside. That night, under the same roof where silence once ruled, there was something different. Not just safety, but warmth. Cole poured June a cup of coffee. She held it in both hands, fingers still inside those old leather gloves. The steam rose slowly. Her voice broke the quiet. "I didn't know if I was allowed to matter." "You don't need permission," Cole said. She looked at him then, not afraid, not unsure. "Just real." "You think a person can be born twice?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "I think some people get buried too early. But not all graves have dirt." June smiled. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder. Not for comfort. Not because she was lost, but like someone who finally knew she wouldn't be forgotten. The next morning, June was the first awake. The sun hadn't come up yet, and the cabin was still dark. She moved quietly, poured water into the kettle, and opened the door to let in the cool air. Outside, the sky was soft gray, with just a hint of gold at the edges. She stepped onto the porch, barefoot, the old glove still in her hands. From the barn, she could hear the child's soft breathing and the quiet stir of the woman turning over in sleep. It was peaceful, too peaceful almost. That feeling again, like something was waiting in the distance. By the time Cole came out, June was already feeding the chickens. "You don't have to work every day," he said. June smiled. "I want to. My hands don't feel useless anymore." Cole leaned against the fence, watching her. "You've changed." June looked up. "You think it's bad?" He shook his head. "I think you're finally walking in your own skin." She didn't answer right away. Then she looked toward the hills. "They'll come again," she said softly. "Not them, but someone. There's always more." Cole nodded. "I know." Later that week, the sheriff returned. This time, he brought papers, official ones. He told Cole they were cleaning up bad landowners near the border. Names were being collected. Grant Teller was already gone, disappeared 2 towns east. But others weren't. Men who still whispered things about the girl with the cursed face. "You sure she's safe here?" the sheriff asked. Cole looked out at June, who was helping the other woman fix the chicken coop. "She's not the one who needs protecting anymore," he said. Still, the sheriff left a warning. If anything happened, June's name might come up. People don't forget faces that haunt them, and some don't forgive. That night, June sat by the fire with the child on her lap. The boy had curly brown hair and big eyes. He called her Miss June now. His mother, Sarah, had started sewing again. She even laughed once, though it had caught her by surprise. Cole brought in firewood and set it down gently. "Town's talking again," he said. June sighed. "They always do. They think you're some kind of curse breaker." June smiled a little. "Maybe I am." Cole sat across from her, arms resting on his knees. "Do you believe in curses?" She thought for a moment, then looked into the fire. "I believe people carry pain like chains, and some chains feel so heavy, they start to believe they were born with them." "And you?" "I'm learning to let go of mine," she said. "One link at a time." Silence filled the room after that, but not the heavy kind. It was the sort that wraps around people when words aren't needed. The next day, trouble returned. It came in the form of a letter. A folded, dirty envelope left at the gate. No name, just one word on the front, Witch. Inside was a drawing. June's face scratched out with black ink and a rope drawn around her neck. Cole gritted his teeth as he read it. June stood behind him, silent. She didn't cry, didn't flinch. "Someone's afraid," she said. "You don't need to read this filth," Cole told her. "I already lived it," she replied. Let them write whatever they want. I'm not going anywhere. Cole burned the letter in the stove. But the seed had been planted. That evening, Cole went into town. Just a short supply trip, he said. June stayed behind with Sarah and the child. While she fed the chickens, she heard the crunch of footsteps behind her. She turned quickly, heart tight. But it was only a boy, maybe 14, holding a small wooden box. "Mama said to give you this," he said. She made it. June opened the box. Inside was a small carved angel, rough but beautiful. On the wings, the words were scratched and gently. "I see you." The boy didn't stay long, just turned and walked off. That night, June placed the angel on the windowsill. She didn't say anything about it, but Sarah noticed. "You're not hiding anymore," Sarah said. June looked out the hills. "No," she replied. "I'm showing up." Weeks passed. Sarah took on work in the garden. The child grew stronger, started laughing more. Cole fixed the water line. June started drawing again, sketching with charcoal on scraps of feed sack. Faces, hands, birds in flight. One drawing she slipped into Cole's hand one evening. It was a picture of him standing in the field, his hat pulled low, shotgun in hand, but behind him a shadow shaped like a hawk rising up. "I don't know what that means," he said. "It means I was never alone," she replied. One morning, while clearing out the barn loft, June found something unexpected, an old saddlebag. Inside it a journal with worn edges. It belonged to Cole's mother. She'd written stories, prayers, pieces of her life carved out in pencil. "I used to be afraid," one page read. "But fear can't live where love is louder." June read that line over and over. Then she closed the journal and pressed it to her chest. That night, she whispered something to Cole before sleep. "I think I found my voice." He smiled. "I know. I've been listening to it for weeks." 2 months had passed since June arrived at the ranch. The land had shifted seasons gently. Green had deepened, and the air smelled heavier with every sunrise. But something quiet had started changing in June, too. Her steps were firmer now. She no longer flinched at the sudden creak of the barn door or froze at voices near the gate. She had started writing. Late at night, when Sarah and the boy were asleep, she would sit by the lantern with a worn notebook, pages filled with thoughts, memories, and truths she had never spoken aloud. Cole never asked what she wrote. He only passed her extra pencils when hers wore down. One night, she handed him a folded page. "It's not poetry," she said. "It's just me. Try to remember who I was before they erased me." Cole opened the page and read quietly. It said my face was dangerous. But maybe it's not the face. They were afraid of the girl behind it. The one who didn't break. The one who kept breathing after they tried to take the air from her lungs. He folded the paper and looked at her. "They didn't erase you. They just tried to hide the wrong girl." June's breath shook. Not because she was scared, but because it was the first time someone had told her she was still whole. The very next day, something shifted. While Sarah was hanging clothes near the back fence, a rider showed up. Not from town. Not someone Cole knew. He didn't carry a badge, but he had the look of someone used to being obeyed. The man didn't get off the horse, just stared at the ranch for a long time before tipping his hat and turning around. June saw it all from the window. Later that night, Cole said, "We might need to prepare for visitors." June just nodded. "I don't run anymore." Still, something old returned that evening, a chill she hadn't felt in weeks. A reminder that healing was not the same as being safe, that there were still people out there who believed pain was owed to women like her. But she had changed. That night, June walked outside and stood in the middle of the field. No coat, no scarf, just her plain shirt and work pants. The moon was full above her, and she raised her face to it like a promise. "If you come for me," she whispered to the dark, "you better bring something stronger than fear, because I don't have any left to give." From the porch, Cole watched silently. He didn't call her back. He just stood there like a wall she knew would never fall. The next day, Sarah asked if she could speak in town, at the small women's group the preacher's wife hosted. It wasn't really a public thing, more like an informal circle where mothers shared stories and worries. Sarah wanted to tell them what happened in Galveston. June offered to go with her. "You don't have to," Sarah said. "I know," June replied, "but I want to." It was the first time June walked into town with her head up. When they arrived, there was a long pause. People stopped talking. Someone dropped a spoon, but no one said anything cruel. Not out loud. Instead, one of the older women stood and offered June a seat. It was a quiet acceptance, but it was something. Sarah spoke first. Her voice shook but didn't fall apart. She told them how she was taken, how she survived, and how someone named June pulled her back from a place she never thought she'd escape. Then it was June's turn. She didn't read from her paper. She didn't cry. She just said, "They thought covering my face would cover my spirit too. But they were wrong. I'm not the sack. I'm the survivor." Someone clapped. Then another, until the room filled with quiet but steady applause. After the gathering, a woman stopped June near the steps. "My niece disappeared last year," she said. "We still don't know where she is." June touched the woman's arm gently. "Keep looking. Don't let them make her invisible." That night, back at the ranch, Sarah held her son tighter than usual. Cole made dinner, and June cleaned the table. There was peace again, but the kind that's earned, not given. Before bed, June stepped outside. A shadow moved at the edge of the woods. Her body went stiff for a moment. Then the shadow stepped forward. It was the same man from before, the rider. But this time he held something in his hand. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, voice low. Cole stepped out behind her, rifle ready. "Then speak fast." The man raised both hands. "I came from across the state line. I used to work for Teller. I helped move girls. Not proud of it." June's fists clenched, but she didn't move. "I walked away when I saw what they did to her," the man continued. "She was the only one who looked straight at us, like she wasn't going to die quiet." He took a step closer. "There's a cabin, about 3 miles east of the ridge. They're keeping someone there. I thought you should know." Cole didn't lower the gun. "Why come now?" The man's eyes dropped. "Because I saw what she became. And I couldn't keep pretending I didn't leave part of myself in that sack, too." He tossed a small paper toward them and turned. "I don't want forgiveness. I just wanted to help one thing go right before I'm too far gone." Then he disappeared into the trees. June stared at the paper on the ground. A hand-drawn map. Her breath hitched. Cole looked at her. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" She nodded. "We're going," she said. They left before sunrise. Cole packed the rifle and a canteen. June took a knife and the charcoal map, folding it carefully and slipping it into her coat. Sarah didn't try to stop them. She stood on the porch with her son clinging to her leg, worry painted across her face. "You don't owe anyone this," she said softly. June shook her head. "I do. I owe it to the ones still waiting in the dark." The trail was rough, overgrown, and winding through dry brush and uneven hills. The map wasn't precise, but June moved like she knew the land. Like her feet remembered the weight of chains and how silence used to feel. Cole followed, his eyes scanning every movement, his fingers never far from the trigger. By midday, they reached the first marker on the map. A dead tree split down the middle like lightning had once cracked it open. From there, it was another mile through thick pine. Neither of them spoke much, though once Cole said, "We don't have to save the world today." And June replied, "Just one girl will be enough." Then they saw it. The cabin sat in a shallow dip in the land, hidden under a web of trees. It was smaller than they expected, half-rotted, its roof sagging. But the smoke rising from the chimney was fresh. Someone was there. They crept closer, staying low. June's heart beat like it wanted to escape her chest, but she kept moving. She remembered the way her own prison had smelled, sour wood and oil. She remembered the sound of breathing that wasn't hers. Through a crack in the boards, she saw her. A girl, no older than 12, sat on the floor near a small stove. Her hands were bound. Her face was bruised, but her eyes were still sharp. She looked up suddenly, as if she felt June watching her. Then a man stepped into the room. June recognized his face. Not the name, not the voice, but the shape of him. One of Teller's men. One of the watchers. She almost gasped, but Cole's hand pressed gently against her shoulder. She nodded. She was ready. Cole whispered, "Go around the back. I'll draw him to the front." June slipped into the trees, crawling through the underbrush like a ghost. She reached the back of the cabin, where a window hung open. The girl inside noticed her again, her eyes wide now. June raised one finger to her lips, then slowly lifted the knife. She motioned, "Stay still. I'm coming." Suddenly, a bang echoed through the woods. The front door flew open, Cole's voice roaring, "Step out now." The man inside grabbed a shotgun, swearing under his breath, then rushed toward the front. June climbed through the window. She hit the floor with a soft thump and crawled quickly to the girl. Her hands were tied with rope, so tight it had cut into her skin. "I've got you," June whispered. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. June sliced through the rope and pulled her into her arms. "We're leaving. Right now." But just as they turned toward the window, the door slammed open again. The man was back. He stared at June like he'd seen a ghost. "You." His voice was full of hatred. "You should be dead." June stepped in front of the girl. The man raised his gun but didn't shoot. "You came back for more? You don't know how to quit, do you?" June's voice was calm, quiet. "I didn't come to quit. I came to finish." Behind him, Cole appeared in the doorway. "Put the gun down," he ordered. The man spun toward him, distracted. June moved fast, rushing forward and driving the knife into his shoulder. He screamed, dropped the gun, and stumbled backward. Cole fired a shot into the wall, just above his head. "That was a warning," he said. "Next one won't be." The man fell to his knees, bleeding and cursing. Cole tied his hands, while June pulled the girl outside. It took them 2 hours to get back to the ranch. By the time they arrived, Sarah had already prepared a bed. The girl didn't speak the whole way, but she never let go of June's hand. Not once. That night, the ranch felt full in a way it never had before. 3 women, 1 child, and a man who had learned how to hold space without stealing it. Later, Cole sat beside June on the porch. "You did it," he said. June shook her head. "Not yet, but we're closer." He looked at her, studying the lines in her face. "Why do you keep going back?" She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, "Because someone once opened a sack and gave me my name back. Now I carry their courage with me." Cole leaned back. "And what's her name?" June stared out at the stars. "I never knew," she said. "But she gave me life. So now I pass it forward." A soft wind blew through the fields. Inside, Sarah and the girl sat by the fire, sewing a new patch onto an old blanket. The child was humming, off-key and sweet. And in the corner, June's notebook sat open to a fresh page. Written in her hand, "Healing isn't quiet. It's loud, brave, messy. But it's real. And it's mine now." The girl's name was Lottie. She spoke for the first time 3 days after they brought her back. June had been combing her hair near the fire, soft hands working gently through the tangles. Lottie had flinched a little, then suddenly whispered, "My mommy used to do that." June paused. "What was she like?" "She smelled like warm flour," Lottie said, "and she sang slow songs when it rained." That night, Lottie slept beside Sarah and her boy, curled between them like a kitten. It was the first night she didn't cry in her sleep. The next morning, Cole rode into town to speak with the sheriff. He didn't trust many folks in that office, but there was one deputy, Emery, who'd helped him once during a livestock dispute. Not the bravest man, but not corrupt either. Emery agreed to come out to the ranch. When he arrived, he kept his hat in his hands and his voice low. He sat with June and Cole in the kitchen while Sarah watched Lottie outside. "You've done something big," Emery said, "but the law's slow here. If you want protection, it's going to have to come from somewhere else." June stared at him. "You mean we're on our own?" He nodded, apologetic. "Unless you want to run. Witness protection, maybe." June shook her head slowly. "I didn't survive just to vanish again." Emery hesitated, then slid a folded letter across the table. "This came across my desk last week. There's a federal inquiry starting in Austin. They're building a case. Trafficking ring stretching across 3 states. Your name isn't in it yet, but it could be. If you speak." Cole stiffened. "She's not going anywhere alone." Emery raised a hand. "Not alone. I'll vouch for you, and I'll ride with you if needed." June stared at the letter. The government. A courtroom. Cameras. Papers. People who would look at her like a symbol and forget she was once a girl in a sack. But then she thought of Lottie, of Sarah, of herself, and slowly she nodded. That night, June packed a small bag. Not running, just preparing. Before dawn, she stepped out to the field where Lottie sat cross-legged, drawing shapes in the dirt with a stick. "You're leaving?" Lottie asked, not looking up. "Just for a while," June said, "to tell people what happened, so they'll stop it from happening again." Lottie was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Will they believe you?" June knelt beside her. "They'll believe the truth. Because I won't let them forget." She pulled the girl into her arms, holding her tightly. "You're strong," June whispered. "You know that, right?" Lottie nodded against her chest. When June looked up, she saw Cole waiting by the wagon. Emery sat up front, checking the reins. Sarah stood on the porch with the boy in her arms, watching silently. There were no goodbyes, just soft looks full of things that didn't need to be spoken. The journey to Austin took 2 days. Along the way, Emery filled June in on the case. Testimonies, evidence, names that made her skin crawl. One of them was Teller's. "He's not running anymore," Emery said. "They found a bank trail, a compound in East Texas. You're not the only one talking." When they arrived, June didn't check into a hotel. She stayed at a small, safe house, guarded and plain. The next morning, she stood before a panel of lawyers and agents. Bright lights. "Recorders. State your name," one of them said. She looked them in the eye. "June. Just June." They asked questions. She answered them all. Slowly, carefully, without trembling. She told them about the warehouse, the sacks, the things the men said when they thought no one would remember. When it was done, one of the agents leaned forward. "How did you survive?" June didn't pause. "I remember my name," she said, even when they tried to steal it. 2 weeks later, they brought Teller in. June didn't get to see his arrest, but Emery told her how it happened, quiet, fast, and full of rage. He didn't say a word, Emery told her, but he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Back at the ranch, Lottie was writing her own stories. Sarah homeschooled her, teaching her how to spell words like freedom and strength. Cole added another room to the house, painted it soft blue, and said, "For whoever needs it next," because someone always would. A letter came in the mail 3 months after the hearing. From the federal office. It said, "Because of your testimony, 14 girls were identified and rescued. Charges are pending. You changed more than your story. You changed theirs." June folded the letter and tucked it into the back of her notebook. That evening, she walked outside and stood beneath the open sky. The wind was stronger now. Not harsh, but bold. Like it had something to say. She whispered to the dusk, "Please take them off." Not a sack, not a chain, but the weight she had carried for years. She let it fall, and she didn't freeze. She breathed, deeply, freely. The past didn't vanish, but it didn't win either. Not this time. The days passed slower now, but softer too. June stayed at the ranch, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because the land felt honest. Every scar in the dirt, every crack in the fence, every breeze through the fields, they all belonged to people who had learned to stay, even when it hurt. Lottie began to laugh again. Sometimes only a little, sometimes so hard she startled the chickens. She named them too, Hope, Brave, and Biscuit. Sarah started teaching her how to bake, and Cole taught her how to ride. One morning, Lottie rode past June, her braids flying behind her, her eyes bright. She shouted, "Watch me, Mama June." June didn't cry, not then. But later, when she sat alone in the old rocking chair, she allowed herself the tears. Not from grief this time, but from something deeper. Relief. She thought of the sack again. Not the one made of burlap, but the other one. The invisible one that had clung to her for years. Fear, guilt, silence. It had stayed with her long after she'd escaped, stitched into her shadow. But now, finally, it was gone, because she'd done the hardest thing of all. She faced the past and lived. One evening, as the sun sank low and the air turned golden, a woman arrived at the ranch. Mid-30s, quiet eyes. She didn't give her name, just asked if this was the place for people who had nowhere else to go. June looked at her, saw the same hollowness in her that she once carried. She nodded. That night, they cleared the blue-painted room. Sarah put fresh sheets on the bed. Lottie placed a folded note on the pillow. June didn't read it until later. It said, "You saved me. Now it's my turn to save someone else." And just like that, it became a place not just of safety, but of restoration. Word began to spread. Quietly, carefully. No posters, no loud claims. Just whispers. Just women helping women. June never called it a shelter. She called it the porch, because that's where it always began, sitting together in the silence, letting the healing come slow and real. Years passed. Teller was convicted. Life without parole. Others followed. The news moved on. But the ranch didn't. It stayed. And it kept growing. One room became 2. One girl became 5. One story became dozens. June never told her full story again. She didn't have to. It was written in every patched quilt, every rusted nail she hammered into a doorframe, every smile Lottie gave a new girl on her first night. One evening, a young woman sat beside June, shaking and silent. Her wrists were scarred, her eyes hollow. June didn't speak right away. Then she said, gently, "You're here now. That means the worst part is behind you." The girl looked at her. "How do you know?" June smiled. "Because you're still asking questions." The stars stretched above them like scattered hope. And that night, the girl slept with the window open. Just a crack. Just enough to feel the breeze. Moral of the story: pain doesn't vanish when we survive it. But healing begins when we stop hiding from it. Freedom isn't a moment. It's a choice we make over and over, one brave step at a time. And sometimes, saving just one soul is enough to change the world.